Yeah, so we have, first, thanks for making it. BJ got called out on fire, Lisa Wheatland is gonna be here, and she's managing fire, so, Eric Trusty had a daughter in volleyball, and Lisa had a situation with family, so, thank you guys for making it, and thank you for being here as well. So, in the past two meetings, we've been talking about, emergency response mapping, and I think you folks are all familiar with it, I hope, and well, we'll in a minute just open this up for a conversation, but essentially, LB 1329 this past legislative session, kind of opened the eyes to a lot, at least to me, I should just speak for myself, but I would assume a lot of other superintendents in the state that this type of mapping existed, because I didn't even know it did. When the bill passed, we were told there would be funding with it. That funding didn't then get announced till later on in the summer. So now, in order to apply for that funding, which is through a grant process, you have to pass a policy that stipulates that you'll use the response mapping and provide it to your local emergency response personnel. So that's kind of where we've at. We've been researching it. We had a presentation by one company. I sat in on another one on Monday morning from a different company with Chief Murphy, and the board has talked about it a couple different times and had some questions, very good conversation, very good questions. But ultimately, at the end of the day, one of the things they wanted to hear from, or one of the groups of people they wanted to hear from, was our local responders and what their thoughts were in regard to the response mapping. So we did have a presentation at the last board meeting, which was by one company, like I said, and the board members got to ask several questions. But I guess I would just start off with, if you guys don't mind, just kind of talking about maybe what you know or what you don't know. Sheriff Gustafson, he's joined us tonight. Chief Lang, former Chief Lang, Bruce from Lang Security and Consulting is with us, and then Chief Murphy from the police department. So Chief Dakey, I did ask to come, but he had a prior commitment as well, so we could have heard from all three. And Lisa, as I said, was on fire. So anybody want to jump in?
I can start.
Yeah. From a community of schools, I do safety consulting for most of southeast Nebraska and some other areas as well. Everybody's dealing with this exact same issue right now because of the funding that's become available, and it's all part of a term that you're going to hear more of down the road, and it's called school hardening. And school hardening refers to us making our schools more secure for those bad things that might happen. So that's the buzzword that's going with this. Mapping is a piece of that puzzle. Mr. Alexander pointed out that there might be some questions about bad guys getting that information. They could use it to plan bad things. And the reality is that when it comes to intruders, when it comes to securing our buildings, the people that are going to be causing us the most grief, first one is going to be parents. It's going to be an unhappy parent that comes into the school and wants to punch out the science teacher because he didn't like the grade his kid got. Now that doesn't make the 6 o'clock news, but that's the one that the principals will tell you, those kind of the people that they do see. And then the other one at the high school level mainly, but sometimes at middle school, the suspended student leaves and then wants to come back in and regrieve what's happened. And then the third thing, of course, is the actual intruder that makes the news and we hear so much about. None of those folks are going to be taking time to go online, find a floor plan, and magically come up with some kind of way to attack the school that simply is kind of out there. It's not a realistic concern. If somebody wants to know the layout of the high school, they go to the basketball game and walk around the high school and they see the layout. If you want to know what the elementary school is, you have an open house and they would wander around during an open house. I mean, it's a school, not a prison. And so, those concerns, I think, are probably not as warranted when it comes to this particular format. And I'll let these guys talk about making it so that it works with their systems, which is really what the most important thing is. When you talk to vendors, you know, the question number one is it compatible with the system that, because these guys all use the same system. And so is it compatible with that system? Because they don't want to bring another system in because of compatibility issues. And so, like, Chief Murphy can talk a little bit more about that. But that's, you know, when you ask me that question, that would not be a concern that I would have as far as floor plans, and they're on the internet. I mean, they're there, and I would not be concerned about that.
The concern, a lot of the questions that we had, the concern is not over local people getting in,
Mhm.
but, and so that sharing this information so that local responders, first responders can get in here, great. There are ways to do that. But it's when a lot of this data gets centralized
Mhm.
in Ohio or wherever,
Mhm.
that bad actors who don't have anything in particular with our school
Correct.
might use that data, maybe not ours, but some data, be able to hack into it because it's such a valuable resource to terrorists,
Mhm.
whoever, that they could get in and take advantage of it. That would be a greater concern
I'm not.
than having local.
Floor plans have been available online in different, I mean, Geocom, which is the company that works with our local vendor, has public safety answering points and computer systems all over the country, much larger than what we have here. I mean, basically, they have agencies that are bigger than all of Nebraska's put together. And they'll have those kind of floor plans, those kind of mapping scenarios will be on their servers, and have been. And I'm not aware of a single case in the country where that's ever been used by any kind of group or terrorist organization or anything like that. I just, you know, you have to always, when we talk about things that might happen, and they're all looking at me smiling because we talk a lot about that when we go to the schools. Talk about what, you know, what's most likely to happen. Let's cure those things first, and that kind of a concern probably is pretty far down the list of things that might happen. I mean, anything's possible.
Yeah.
I'm not running, I mean, I've been around a long time, anything's possible, but it's probably not very probable.
Well, I guess I look at it from a standpoint of not just an individual coming into a school. I look at the benefit if we had a tornado come through and we have two buildings that are hit, both buildings, or all our buildings are more than one story. But if you have a collapse, what I really think would be helpful for other people coming in from other communities who have never been in our buildings, having maps where they could locate people. The other thing, and I don't remember what his name was, but when he was here, he was talking about your cell phone can ping, and you know, if you had a pocket where you had students trapped, you would be able to, if they had a cell phone with them, you would be able to pinpoint where they were. So I was looking at it from that standpoint. I don't think we can ever prevent everything that's gonna happen. We can only be prepared for what may.
Well, and that's exactly right. And this is just a piece of what a response puzzle. And both of these guys will tell you that they have new people all the time.
Right.
And their new people come from Minnesota or California or any place in between, and they may not know the layout of the elementary school. They may have done a tour, but they're not gonna remember that. So and remember, you know, all of our school buildings, doors are all numbered and lettered. And so that floor plan combined with that, then new officer A is in a situation, we could say, okay, it's a door number 5, which is down that hall in this way. They have something to look at. It'll be up on their screen in their car or their fire truck or their sheriff's deputy car or whatever, so.
So with this Geocom that you spoke of, I mean, what would be the benefits of getting this new?
Mapping in it.
Right.
So Geocom has that program. what they went to, and saw a demonstration, that company also says, you know, we can do that as well. There's more than one vendor can do what they're talking about doing.
Okay, so where are those files stored then? You mentioned that there's a company that keep this online then?
Well,
On a
there's-
server?
yeah.
Yeah, well, Geocom keeps, first of all, let me back up a second. Right now, we currently use Geocom for our 911 system on mapping. They've came up with this indoor mapping, which Bruce had hit on. I mean, they do that all over the country, whether that be schools, hospitals, shopping malls, anything like that. So, all of their data is kept within our department, within our, and it's all encrypted. And it's kind of a CJIS related policies that they put on those things. And it's all the same information that the police department has, whether that be if I wanted to run your criminal history, for instance, that's all encrypted stuff. And we have to, there's rules and procedures to go through to keep that stuff. And so that's the type of data that is kept with those.
So would, like, up the chain of command, would, like, FBI, State Highway Patrol, FEMA, whatever the case, they have access to these files in Geocom?
No,
So that's what concerns me between our current system and this new emergency response mapping system that we're looking at now. And
as
thank you,
far as,
Chuck.
as far as what part? Can you explain that a little bit?
Right, but
further,
this will
your
be,
concern?
yeah, right, it will be kept on a server, on a file, like Chuck said, this company in New Jersey. And you mentioned that, you know, no one has ever been hacked, or you're not aware of any hacks, but that's how the hack works, you're not aware of it until something happens.
Right.
And with this company, someone's not gonna pick out Beatrice, Nebraska and say, I'm gonna hack them and then use this for whatever reason. They're gonna go to this company and hack that server and get all this information to possibly be used. And I know, Sheriff, you haven't spoke yet, but
I'm just listening.
I just wanna reference something. You know, the Sheriff's Association happens every year. They have their conference in Washington DC. I don't think you were able to make it this year.
No.
Is that correct? But did you get a briefing from that, from?
For the national one?
Yeah, from the Director Ray, the head of the FBI. He spoke, and that was in February 9th, where he said that there was more, and I quote, more red flags and threat to America since 9/11, before 9/11. And he said, and I quote, he sees red flags everywhere I turn. And, I mean, and he said that also the cybersecurity threat is worse in the history of our country currently, that they're being hacked all the time right now. And so, when they had this conference, I believe the FBI paid for like 100 sheriffs to go into Israel, and this was after October 7th when they had that terrorist attack there, where they centered and focused on soft targets in schools and kids, and you know the story, where they sent these sheriffs to Israel, where they were trained because it wasn't the government that came in their defense, it wasn't their FBI that came in defense or the military, it was the sheriffs and the local police that stopped that rampage that took place. And they learned and brought that information back to America, and we're training other sheriffs. I don't know if you heard of that. And so that's really, like, that's my main concern about this information being kept in a situation or in a place that could be hacked, where, I mean, I trust you guys to respond, and I just, like, what would you have to say in reference?
Well, the floor plans will be kept on the server, which is kept in the city.
Right.
City has a communication center that sheriff uses and emergency management uses, and that same computer system is, the server for that is here in the city of Beatrice and backed up here in the city of Beatrice. They can, their tech people can fix it remotely, they can scroll into it, you know, and enter into it, but the system is housed here. Again, what you're gonna see with this mapping software that I've seen, the two presentations I've seen on it, is not classified information, it's not anything other than public record. In fact, someone could send a letter to Mr. Alexander and say, give me the copy of the floor plans from the elementary school. And he'd have to give them to him, and he's got 'em, you know, from the construction of it. I mean, that's public record, so that's not stuff that's top secret or can't be
Sure.
kept from anybody. It's not, it would not be if they asked the police department for a copy of it, it's not public record. I mean, it is public, I'm sorry, I
Right.
misspoke. It is public record, it's not investigative in nature, so I don't think you can keep them from.
I think, my thought is you hear about breaches all the time. I mean, nothing's 100% foolproof.
Right.
And, I mean, you even listen to all these big companies that get hacked into, all the personal information gets stolen from them. But I would be more concerned about, what Mrs. Byers had talked about, maybe if the building collapsed. Where do we go to find these kids? We have mapping to do that, and I think that is the major concern that we should be looking at, because, yeah, that's not 100% foolproof either, but it's sure gonna help us out when we have that particular call. I don't think there's a fix to a breach. I really don't. I mean, I've been doing fraud work for a lot of years, and there's, all the time you hear breaching or hacking. I don't think there's 100% foolproof fix to that.
Generally, there's a financial connection to getting that. If they steal data, it's to sell it, or they're trying to rip somebody off financially. And I'm not aware of any in the United States where they're breaching it for access to floor plans and that kind of stuff. Maybe it could be happening, but I've never heard of it.
When it comes to encryption, we say there's different levels of encryption. Some are virtually impossible to break into unless you've got some back door to be able to find it, get it. I see the big advantage of the system, this mapping thing, is with the first responders who are coming in the first half hour, few minutes, get into the building, be able to take advantage of the electronics in the map, be able to orient that map so anyone, even if they're new to the department, can quickly say, okay, here's where I need to go. They've got their instructions, they know what door, what room, all that kind of stuff is available to them very, very quickly. That's why where I see the real value is with the first responders. Those coming from a greater distance, such as Omaha, wherever else responders may be coming from an emergency, it's going to take a couple hours to get here. And in that time, if we have alternative means of getting that information to them, there's time to do it. Even though I recognize that when an emergency occurs, there's chaos. So who has time to be able to alert these new people coming in?
I can address that a little bit for you. And these guys in the back are gonna know where I'm going with this. And if Lisa was here, this would be the part she would start talking about. You have two kinds of incidents. You have the first incident is going to be a rapid response. We're coming in with 1, 2, 3 guys, police or the sheriffs or whatever the school is, and they're going in to neutralize the problem. All right, they're going in right away. If we have a building collapse, we have a tornado, we have any natural disaster like that, we're gonna set up a command post and implement the incident command system. All right, so anybody that comes in isn't just gonna be coming in willy-nilly. They're gonna be coming in, and there's going to be a command center led by Lisa, and they will then be assigning them to do what they need to do. Them having the map or quickly, that's not gonna generally be relevant to how they respond to that. The incident command system and one of the things we encourage is our administrators to have level 1 incident command training. And that's why, so they understand how that all works in the event we do have a disaster. And so, if Lisa was here, she would tell you, you know, that particular scenario you're describing is not a concern because the incident command center would have the mapping. They would be running the show. If we had resources coming in from out of town, they would be reporting to the command center and get assignments, not be going out on their own.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Which brings about part of the concern that in the discussion last time was, that looks great. In other words, keep the information locally where it's really going to be useful.
Yeah.
But it seemed as though if there's some central location where that data is also being kept, what good is it going to do in New Jersey or Ohio or someplace like that, other than the stated purpose of, hey, we'll make it easier to upgrade, when things are changed, we can make sure that all these changes will work with you to try to handle that.
And
Instead
we all
of-
hate the word upgrade, by the way.
Money.
Yeah,
Yes.
so the convenience of having the information more broadly available. So, again, it's not just whether it's public information or some kind of protected, secret information. It's how quickly you can get that information together and make use of it.
And then with this systems, all the ones I think I'm aware of, they're gonna be in the individual cars, individual fire trucks, individual emergency response vehicles, in their computers right there, for real time.
What's the funding? Is that 100%? Is there a match on it, or
You don't know, you just have to apply for the grant.
see what happens?
Yeah, and it's interesting because as we went through the call on Monday, we found out that in the state of Iowa, there's 1,743 schools or something in that nature. And the state of Iowa did this paid for it for all their public and private schools across the board. So it'll be interesting to see if this is the initial funding amount, and then there'll be more that comes in the future, because if every school in the state did this, $525,000 isn't gonna cover. I think they said the cost in Iowa was like just over $2 million to do it, so.
I think to make it clear for me, because I appreciate Eric's question, and I think, and Chuck has also brought up a point, but I think the question is, will these files be kept here locally and that you can then share in the case of a disaster? Or will they be stored on a computer in Maryland?
There are maps, so they'll be kept on our server. And if they need to be tweaked, let's just say the school added another room somewhere, they can beam in from their computer, wherever they're at, New Jersey or wherever, beam in and change the mapping and fix it for the school.
So they will be in Maryland? Is
Well,
that your question?
no, the maps will be on our servers here in town.
Well,
But they
Zach
can,
did
but
say
they can
that.
reach in and have
Sure,
access to
sure,
it.
they gotta be able
To
to
be
fix
able
it.
to manipulate.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they don't have the information there, physically there.
Right.
How can they do that without having information there?
Well,
Because
he
they
did say.
'Cause they hack
Zach
it.
did say that they kept those on file
It
for
sounded like
Yeah.
that
Or
was
server
what
in New
was
Jersey.
being said.
So
that
they'll
they
be in
would
New
keep
Jersey.
Right,
And
Right.
have a
For
copy
updates.
theirs to help.
Is that, am I
help with
correct there?
updates,
correct.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think.
So that, you're telling us something different, but I think they told us they would be kept in New Jersey or wherever that is.
Okay.
As well as here.
We're probably
Yes.
talking about two different companies as well.
Yes.
Yeah, you are.
Oh.
We're talking
Okay,
about
so
two
that's-
different companies. We're talking about CRG that was here that gave the
Right.
presentation. These guys use GeoCom.
Right, that's,
We use GeoCom now, just let me touch on that a minute. The reason I had asked Jason to listen to GeoCom is because we currently use GeoCom. CRG, if they came in, that'd be a whole new vendor. We would have to do a lot of tweaking in our dispatch area to fix all that. And since we already have it with GeoCom, It's just now they're doing indoor mapping, all we have to do is add the indoor mapping, which, like I said, that's the reason I had Mr. Alexander take a listen to those guys on the presentation on Monday, so. And again, the mapping that they make for us, the maps that we have currently are kept here on our servers, and the mappings, the indoor mapping that they would make would also be kept with us.
So are they planning to give you a quote on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So would you be more inclined to say, okay, we want to do this, but we're going to go with Geocom rather than the other company because we already have the ability to tap into it, to what is local? Is
Yeah.
that what we're looking at?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense with, as we've all said, we trust our local officials. And so, I mean, more than we do anyone else, and because we live with them. We know that when we need them, they're there for us, and it just makes sense to partner in that Geocom arena with them, if that's what's already in use, to be able to use it if we ever need it.
So do you know when they're going to give you a quote?
Well, we just met yesterday morning.
And they don't have it yet?
Did a Zoom, and he was gonna send me some information, but he hasn't sent it yet, so I did send an email back towards the end of the day today and just say,
So
he has to get some information from me.
would that be covered, that would be covered by, for the grant? A grant could pay for that then? For the-
Yes,
I believe so,
yeah, that was part of the grant. That was actually in his presentation,
yeah.
that part
Yeah,
of the grant.
that's right.
Yeah. In addition to that, I will say that, it kind of goes along with our Geocom mapping, kind of goes along with our CAD system as well, which it sounds like our system and the Nebraska State Patrol system is, they're going our direction. So if that's the case, if an incident did happen, we would be able to push that indoor mapping from our Geocom to State Patrol if they were on their way, so we would be able to do that as well. And obviously,
I think
the
that's the
sheriff's
case.
office is on the same system as we are, and, same thing with those guys, so.
So, just a couple things come to mind. If any of the things that we've talked about would happen, whether it's a natural disaster or, something else, whatever that something else might be. But let's say it's more a mass destruction type level than a heart attack, where it's an isolated person. If that were to happen, who would respond? I mean, obviously, police department, sheriff's department, our fire department, but who else do you see, or in your experience, that you see would respond as well?
There's a book, it's called the LEOP, Local Emergency Operations Plan, which is a big version of what you all did for your emergency operations plan, but it's a bigger version of that. And it outlines, depending on the disaster, who the players are, who's in charge, what resources you're gonna use, and so forth. And it's very comprehensive. We used it in the tornado of 96, thank you. And it was an eye-opener for me at that time as the chief then. And so, those folks, that book, or that incident command system is what's gonna dictate who responds and who's gonna be responsible for what. One of the things that you'll not like very well, if that happens in your school, is you'll be in an incident command center,
Yeah,
and you can't leave.
right.
And you'll be going, but I wanna go to the school, and they're gonna go, but you can't leave.
Yeah.
And, these guys over there are gonna be doing your running for you. And, it's pretty, as a head guy, it's pretty unsettling to be in there, but it's very important that we follow those guidelines. Lisa, if she was here, she was the grand poobah of that, that's what her job is.
I had just one more question here, I'm trying to get it all together here. The LB 1329, so is there like an obligation of something that we're gonna have to adhere to according to the LB 1329 if we do take, because that's what it is, right? This is what it's based on, that
Correct.
unicameral.
Yeah.
And then so if we do send off for the grant and we get it, then is there like, I got the law here, trying to make sense of it, but, or not the law, whatever it is. But is there something that we're gonna have to adopt for policy purposes? For like who can see this? I'm not sure how that was written, like if you do take that grant money, if you're gonna have to follow these rules according to the LB 1329.
Basically, the policy 3241 that we shared is what we would have to adhere to, which is provide the mapping data to public safety agencies for use in response to emergencies. The mapping data will be provided in electronic or digital format and will contain all information identified in state statute and is reasonably requested by the public safety agencies. And then annually, we have to review that with the safety agencies,
Okay.
which we do anyway, but that's part of the emergency safety operations plan that we have to do anyway, so. But that's what it would be required, is just that.
Okay.
Doesn't sound like anything with processes,
Right.
hierarchies, management.
I think the other thing is, it's been good from the standpoint, I've learned a lot of, I didn't know this mapping even existed, this type of map. We've just lived off of floor plans for years, and, hopefully we never have to use it, but it's been a good learning experience to find out what exists out there.
And how that's going to, in the future, the future's pretty crazy. I'll just take a minute or two to kind of tell you where that's going, and, they're gonna, at some point, that'll be connected with your camera system. The camera system has three things in it: facial recognition, weapon recognition, and if you have a guy with a gun in your school, that camera system follows that guy, and it's gonna be able to connect on that map and say, he's outside room 3A. And, that's not futuristic, that's in southeast Nebraska today in other schools. So, it's going, and then sending the video links of those camera systems to first responders. As they're rolling in, they'll have those, they can have that visual of that as they come into the scene. That's right on the horizon, and that's, I think at the federal level, you'll see some grant money trickling down for the school hardening that I talked about at the very beginning, and that's all part of that.
So do you believe that if Uvalde would have had a mapping system like this with cameras, if that disaster would have been like it was, or would they have been able to respond better?
Well, you asked me, so, she asked. Uvalde happened for a couple reasons. One, the school did not respond appropriately to lock their facility down. And we talked, if I'm not blue in the face, I am sometimes, about how we need to do that quickly. The elementary school now has the buzzer, right, or the button, to activate it, send that message out right away. That's where we're heading, is we wanna automate that system, because what that lady did, when she saw the guy coming up with a gun, she was on the phone, called 911. You'd say, well, okay, that's good, right? No, that's bad. We want that person to lock the school down, then call 911, because what happens when you call 911, the dispatcher asks you a million questions, you get in a conversation, all that time, this guy's coming up with a gun. That was part A, and then the law enforcement response was horrible, and we wouldn't do that.
Would you find this-
We like to think we wouldn't do that.
Would you find this type of system helpful in any type of emergency?
Specifically, my opinion, it'll be specifically in natural disaster type of emergencies is where
Okay.
you would really use it the most. There could be other times where you got a guy and you got a new person that's not familiar with the facility, and they can pull it up, look on their screen in their car and say, okay, this is at room 3A, there's 3A, I can go there, so.
But, and quite honestly, that's where my mind went more with the natural disaster, probably because we've gone through those.
Yeah, we have.
Just a great example is, probably a month ago, we had a meeting at Mosaic, and, that's a big campus, big facility. And, if we had mapping there, it'd be great. That's, because there's buildings all over the place there. And they finally sent us a floor plan first time we ever had a floor plan that I'm aware of Mosaic. And, you know, now, if we get the mapping with that, you know, we can just shoot that to the cars instead of pulling out a piece of paper and looking, you know, find your particular room you're looking
Are
for.
they planning to do the mapping?
I don't know, not that I'm aware of right now, but at least we have a floor plan. I mean, that's something more than what we had.
Bruce, with the other schools that you consult with,
Mhm.
okay, do you have a feeling of where they're headed in regards to this?
Yeah, I had asked multiple times about that, they're all heading in that direction, I don't know anybody that isn't. If they, the only reason they wouldn't, it'd be funding.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they do or don't get the grant. You know, Beatrice is pretty far ahead on the curve. We used to be way ahead on the curve, we're pretty far ahead on the curve, but there's some schools that are just getting started. And so you should be commended for what you've done over the years, but it's a moving target that we just keep getting, the technology gets better, and so we have to keep up with it.
Just curious, how are the private schools doing?
Poorly in Nebraska. Yeah, you know, there's a, there isn't much connect between, funding between public and private when it comes to safety and security. I can't speak for anything else, but, you know, the safety and security requirements, like they require an audit of public schools
Yes.
for accreditation, public, or the private schools, most of them don't do that. And they may say it's for money, but a lot of times they just don't wanna know what they don't wanna know.
Other questions?
Just a little statement here. I know I've kind of been kind of a stickler on this, but the reason I got on this school board was for my kids and all of our kids, you know, make sure that they're safe and secure. The main reason why I went out there and pushed and, you know, fell in love with this new school idea was for safety. I took tours of the school. I saw all the, you know, all the possible ways where someone could get in, and just, there was this complete lack of safety. And so, and then with the ever-changing world today, you know, it's just, our enemy is so smart, and, you know, just the idea of this stuff being online that could be gathered and used at any moment. I mean, just October 8th, the House Committee on Homeland Security came out with a report where they stated they had cells, and they knew of in 29 different states, and I got a report here, one was closed down in Kansas. And, you know, just with everything going on in the world today, we gotta be extra careful. And, you know, that's where my mindset is on this, that nothing online is secure, period. Nothing. I mean, even at our federal government, I mentioned before, IRS was hacked last year. My social security number was used and filed on my taxes. Took me a year to get my taxes, make sure it was me. And so that's just kind of where I'm at, that it's not that I'm like fighting against this, it's just, you know, risk versus reward.
Yeah, it's
And-
balancing
Right.
risk and benefit.
Right. Because I want your guys' job to be as good as, you know, so you're flowing, you get in there and take care of business. But then at the other side, it's like, have we made it this far without this, you know, where we can rely on the good guys knowing the school and these drills, and not having to worry about pulling up something on their car or on their tablet when then they're going in there with their hearts and ready, you know, because they got wives or husbands or children or friends in these schools. And, you know, that's, I mean, I trust our local guys, and I can't say enough about the sheriff and the chief and everyone on board here locally, but that's just, you know, risk versus reward.
And part of it is how the information could be misused. Like IRS, and they've got all account numbers, all that kind of stuff,
Right.
finances and identification. So the cases, the modes of being able to, use cases is what we say in computers, use cases. So someone gets a whole bunch of data, how could they, what would be their motivation, what could they do with it?
Which is perfectly understandable, I mean, and by no means do I feel like in any way, shape, or form, I appreciate your perspective and how you've communicated it. I think think it's a legitimate, you know, concern, and you bear that concern and appreciate your concern for the kids. That's what makes you a good board member. So thank you.
Thank you very much for
You bet.
being here.
Thank you.
Very helpful.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you being here.
Take care.
Next up are strategic plan, site plans, and first we're gonna have Mrs. Timmerman and Mr. Ford visit with us about their strategic plan.
We just wanna, we can just talk about it.
Okay, just go.
Is that, you guys wanna view it, or? is it
Sure.
okay if we
Yeah,
talk
no,
about it?
we want to view it.
Okay.
I feel like let down.
You were not excited when you saw the projector going.
No, I was, I just wanted to guess.
It's-
Boyd doesn't usually show up with that.
Mr. Boyd has one too.
No kidding?
talking about?
We're gonna have to have a policy on this.
Guess what? Our slides are, there's only 6 slides.
Yeah, it's minimal.
But I made cute slides.
Yeah, mine are not cute.
She
So-
just has a subscription to Canvas.
So our school improvement goal, and as we said, the whole thing is, we have to go slow to go fast. So our goal is to strengthen our tier 1 practices for all students. What is tier 1? It's instruction that all students get at Beatrice Elementary School. We need to be more concise, we need to be more deliberate, and we need to hold people to fidelity and go back and check those things to make sure that we're doing that. So that is our goal for our school improvement this year.
So give me an example of something that all students.
So we've been talking about PLC for years and years and years and years and years, right? So we have PLC, and then in those PLCs, they were supposed to be talking about their priority standards. So what we have been doing is taking those priority standards, and we said, we're gonna focus on 3 areas: academic, behavior, and social emotional. So let's go to behavior, because that's easy, that's kind of a yes-no kind of thing to look at. So what are we doing for behavior for tier 1? So we're saying all students at Beatrice Elementary will use common language. So we're using Dan St. Romain common language. We are gonna define our behaviors, which we've talked about, and I think every single school has talked about it, and maybe they'd have posters on up, but we're using that on what we're going to do to define behaviors and what we're gonna do when that behavior happens. And then use of incident reports. So teachers aren't just saying, oh, this kid's being bad in my class. Okay, this child did this at this time during this, and this is what we did. So we can narrow down those behaviors. Is it maybe that kid and another teacher? Is it maybe recess? Someone maybe likes data more than Jackie Nielsen does and loves to look at it and gets really, really, really excited when you talk about EduClimber, where all this is going. And so taking that, look at how excited he is. I mean, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
And so we have a group of teachers with our MTSS team that then has come together to said, okay, our biggest thing at the elementary, 100% hands down, is using these not for writing and to just go after kids. I mean, hitting kids is beyond, but we know that's a bigger problem than just kids just hitting. We know kids don't have self-control. We know kids are in a world that it's instantaneous. I don't like something on TV, I turn it. I don't like something on my phone, I swipe it. We don't know how to control ourselves, so it's a bigger problem than just teaching a kid how to keep our hands to ourselves. But that's something we're focusing on as a group. How can we help kids better maintain their body and not hit when I don't get what I want? Because that's their go-to. Hit, kick, spit, whatever. It's just how I can get people out of my face. And then also having morning meetings to talk about how to get kids talking to each other, how to get that common language, how to teach those personality skills and one-to-one. So that was what tier 1 is, that all classrooms across our school, all kids, no matter if you're a non-speaker, a non-English speaker, no matter if you're a special education student, no matter if you're a child that doesn't pay attention very well, you are all getting this, and you are all under the same expectations under the roof of Beatrice Elementary.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'll hop back into academics and kind of piggyback off what Missy was just saying too. So we're solidifying our tier 1 approach in the classroom as well in terms of our academic approach. So it was really fun the other day. I was able to go do some quick informal walkthroughs, 5-7 minutes in each classroom. And so I started on the far end of the one grade level and then just worked my way through. And so you got to see over that progression of time how the teachers were working collaboratively, and you could just tell that there had been very intentional planning going into their lessons, and they were all carrying it out, all in a little bit different nuanced ways, but they all had a common goal of what they were working towards. And the best part of the entire thing for me, I'm a former special ed teacher, so kids that need a little bit extra help kind of have a special place in my heart, but when I was finishing up and getting to the last teacher, that's when the tier 1 instruction was just finishing up and they were going to start breaking up into their small groups. Well, right then is when the special ed and title teacher came in and said, hey, I'm ready to grab my kiddos. They've received their tier 1 instruction academically. They've been exposed to conjunctions, to apostrophes, to the learning target of the day. So they might not have that in-depth understanding if they're getting pulled out because they are a student in special ed. They might not even have their letter sounds yet. But they were getting exposed to that language that is above and beyond probably their ability level at that time, but at the same time, they're going to be tested on these things later. So we can't have them not have any exposure to it. So really, really cool to see the planning that's been going on. Missy and I also, when we were setting up our expectations for when we're going into our PLC, we've utilized one of the extra learning spaces in the school, room 219, that everybody's posting their learning targets in there, their standards that they're going to be working on, the common formative assessments that they're going to be doing, when they're doing it. And so there's collaboration horizontally, but there's also collaboration vertically too. So first grade is knowing what kindergarten and second grade is doing, so on and so forth, if that makes sense. So in terms of the academics, just in terms of our data that we're working with, Missy kind of already referenced EduClimber, so we're utilizing Dibbles and IXL, two separate programs to...
We call it Amplify though, so people...
Amplify, yes. So the two different systems to track our students on how they're doing in English language arts or in math. That data is then getting pulled in, and then we are starting to provide targeted interventions for kids if they're underperforming, and then being able to try to help them and make them be able to make growth. So going down a little bit, kind of already referenced just everybody's receiving that core instruction, but the last thing is with our guiding coalition, we've been meeting periodically as an administrative team with our guiding coalition. So that's a group of teachers that make up our guiding coalition just across grade levels and across some special ed teachers, some specials teachers. But that's just developing those common formative assessments. So when I was in second grade today, checking out a classroom, it was awesome because they were doing their small group work. Well, every kid was getting tested on the same 5 or 6 questions, and that was happening in every single second grade room. And so if everybody's missing question number 3, we're going to go back and we're going to reteach on question number 3. But if it's kind of hit or miss, well, then they can work through that individually in their individual classroom, maybe work with those kids that maybe need a little bit extra help and group those kids accordingly. But having those common formative assessments, having that common language, utilizing the same data, then being able to look to see if the kids are responding to the interventions that we're putting in place. I'm really excited because that's when you start moving the needle on getting kids progressing the way that we want them to.
The other cool thing about the Guiding Coalition is it holds all of our PLCs accountable. And so it's not like I have my PLC and I don't know what I'm doing, but I have my PLC and I know that this PLC is doing it, and I can ask questions to that PLC. But it also, with the academics, our hour of plan time that we were so lucky to do in our scheduling has really helped. I had a post-observation with the teacher today. I said, how is that hour going? She's like, it has made me as a first-year teacher not feel like a first-year teacher because I have my team every single day that I can go to and say, help, or hey, I tried this, it didn't work, how are those things going? So that Guiding Coalition holds accountability, but the planning holds our teams together and helps them plan so our kids can grow at the same and equality across the board, which we strove for. Our third area is social emotional. You know how passionate I am about that. We have started the DESA screener for all of our K-5 kids, to look at kids with any kinds of needs that pop up that we need to, having our guidance counselor, our mental health person, work with that as well. We try to do lots of celebrating successes. That's me. That's
You're tickling the
but that's happy and sad. We try to celebrate successes. Just today, I went into Mr. Ford, I said, hey, we need to look at our IXL data. When the IXL guy was here, he said, kids should be proficient of 2 new skills every week. So I said, okay, data guy, pull up where we're at and see kids that have, so I just was doing the month of August, so it'd be 8 new skills a week, right? 8 new skills in August. We have kids 84, 90, 120
120
new
was some of the
skills
high
that they are
ones.
proficient in, and we're gonna go celebrate those on Friday. And we're gonna surprise, no, it's, I'm sure lots of people are watching this.
Hold the paper.
We're gonna go, we're gonna go surprise those kids and thank them for learning and growing. We need to do more of that. We've done that with teachers. The slide has been
Awesome.
an amazing way to celebrate this success, especially like tickets for being responsible. They are so proud. They get to wear a sticker and they get to go home. Today we had a class of 3rd grade that they had earned the word compliment, and I said, you guys like spelled compliment, huh? I'm proud of you. And they were just like, I said, I guess you know what that means. And I just took my keys and I pulled, and it was so loud, I felt bad. So having kids excited about school is really, really fun. And so, but also setting realistic expectations and consequences. Mr. Ford and I are lockstep. You know, we don't tolerate the hitting. We don't tolerate those kind of things, and trying to curb that. But knowing that punishing isn't the best way to curb things. We have to figure out how it happens and what we need to do to prevent it, and not just always punish because it doesn't work. So working through those things. So we're super excited. Anxiously,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
anxiously nervous, so you can go to the next
Okay.
one, for test scores to come out, because teachers have been working super duper hard. And we know that it's gonna take a few years to change everything, but please know that our teachers, our paraeducators, every staff in that building is working all of the time to help our kids grow.
You know, I find it interesting that you said your first year teacher said that they had so much help, and that you know, it made them feel not like a first year teacher. I talked to a teacher who's probably been in the district for 20 years, and she said, our first year teachers don't feel like first year teachers. They feel like they've been here a lot longer. So it's kind of interesting, you know, you kind of said the exact reverse of what I heard from a longtime teacher, so.
Well, but I think they're both saying that they have support, and they're there to help help each other, and it's help people that are, when you've done something for so long, it's nice to get new perspective and ideas on things
Well,
as
and they
well.
were excited.
Yeah, no,
That we have new teachers in the district
That are as talented.
that are
They
as
are
talented as they are, yeah.
Yeah,
I just had that conversation with Missy the other day, of
Okay.
like dynamic teachers,
Yeah.
and so pretty darn cool. So then, last thing we have on here, guys, is just kind of where we're going, our next steps. So our MTSS teams are getting up and running. Had multiple meetings with our behavior team. We're gathering information, gathering people to be a part of our ELA and math MTSS teams. When you're bringing all these teams from separate buildings into one, we want to relook at that and develop our teams. The data analysis is coming, and that's going to be really great too, especially when we have the winter screener coming up, so we can see the progress that the kids have made. Progress monitoring of our systems, that is going to be, so I just had a conversation with Dr. Nielsen today about getting that data pulled into EduClimber, and I think that's going to be really empowering for the teachers too, because sometimes it feels like a grind, you know, where you're maybe not for sure if they're making the progress that you're hoping for. This is really a black and white measurement of, yeah, what you're doing is working. Keep going, keep going, keep going. And then, yeah, just that daily approach of we're going to be better tomorrow than we are today. So that continued and consistent improvement, that's what we're looking for. So.
What questions you got?
Fun going to work every day, guys. Love going there. It's awesome. It's fun going to work every single day. It's exciting. Good
Let's give
stuff.
us a little applause. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
You betcha.
Now, Mr. Boyd is gonna give us a high school update.
Black and white presentation.
Zero color.
I bet it's got some orange.
We have the rollout TV to bring in.
But I will
I only have
appreciate
it on
the Facebook
VHS.
updates from the high school. Those have been wonderful.
They have been.
They've
what?
been the Facebook updates, like,
Yeah.
not the pictures, but like information,
Mhm.
like when there's days out or they're doing something, those have been very helpful.
We're trying to simplify that process, and as, I gotta give a lot of credit to Mr. Kendall, he couldn't be here tonight, he's been really, amazing, in helping with those sort of things, and, it's one of those, situations where we're continuing to work on how we do it. You know, part of our whole thing is, like they were saying, we gotta go slow to move fast, those sort of things. We're both, you know, starting new with what we're doing, and so, I appreciate hearing that and knowing that, you know, that's something worth our time, and those sort of pieces. So thank you for that. Mine's not near as exciting or cute, but we'll go through. So our two goals, main goals as a school this year, are to reduce the percentage of behavior referrals per cohort over 3 years. So we want to really look at the data over a period of time to see if the different things that we're trying or implementing, if they're having an effect. All of us have been in education or around education long enough to know that if you just try new shiny things all the time and you don't fully implement and look over a span of time, you don't really know how effective you're being, and you're probably not being very effective. This goes straight to our site plan strategy 5. It'll develop and implement district-wide systems to enhance student learning. Our second goal is to increase the graduation rate year by year over the next 3 years. And so those are the two umbrella goals that we're really working for everything that we do at our school to fit under that. And really it should, anything that you're doing should be, we want kids that in classrooms and not out of classrooms because they're in trouble. And then if kids are graduating, that means they're meeting the different benchmarks or standards that we're wanting them to do academically. So improving our data. We've got first quarter of this year, first quarter of last year. The kind of asterisk in there is we did implement a new cell phone policy. It went significantly better than we anticipated. I think the staff, when we were first starting, they were anticipating hundreds of violations in the first quarter. I even heard of 500 at one point in time. We've had 58. So if you remove that kind of nuance, we're sitting pretty even with last year, which I'm actually pretty happy about because we have a new administration, and though we're doing similar things, it's nice to see that we're status quo right now. And so we can start there and then we can work to get better from there, as opposed to sometimes when you have a change in things, there's lots of testing, there's lots of different elements that play in where you might see a spike in behavior or a testing of those boundaries, that sort of thing. And we really haven't seen that. And so that we feel pretty good about this data. It just in regards of here's our baseline. We're basically where we were, okay, and Dylan and I are gonna continue to work toward decreasing our average versus last year, and then also previous quarter to next quarter to next quarter. And there's always things like, you know, the amount of full moons or holiday breaks or whatever sort of in there that really does impact data. I mean, it does. And so that's why looking both like microscopically at our own year and then looking back and seeing what the trends are is something that we'll be doing behavior data wise. In terms of graduation, you guys have seen all the numbers. Graduation rates are interesting because you just see fluctuations within classes too. You have a class of 180 versus a class of 120. You're going to see some different deviances in percentages just with numbers. But where we're particularly going to focus our efforts are over the years, we've noticed is our special education. Our resource kids are not graduating at a rate in which we want them to. And that would significantly help bump our graduation rates. The other thing that we've really, I'm going to skip ahead here and I'll go back since I'm talking about it. The other thing that we're really starting to work on is to focus on our freshmen. When I look at the data, we're pretty good at, even if we don't necessarily, like we have our graduation rate for 4 years and then we look at our 5 and 7 year, we get quite a few kids in that 5th year. I'm gonna have, I believe it's 5 or 6 that are gonna graduate this semester. That my thought is if we had done a better job for them as freshmen, they would have graduated with their cohort instead of a semester off. Does that make sense? The way I worded that. And so we are obviously working with all kids, or the sophomores, juniors, and seniors. We're continuing to work hard with them. But some of the different pieces that we're implementing are really starting to target our freshmen to make sure that they are moving on as sophomores and they're not reclassified next year as freshmen again. ICU is something that we've started that the middle school has been running. We are just in the infant stages of it. Both learning as a staff how to utilize it most effectively, and then also administratively trying to work to schedule different interventions and pieces like that. That, okay, we know all these kids have missing assignments, but when are we going to help them get those assignments turned in? And how are we going to best use our time to make sure that's happening? Some of the other ones would be identifying learning targets, making sure we're consistent with that. Like I said, time to complete those missing works. And then one thing that we're always going to focus on is points of contact for all students. So do all students have an adult in the building that they're working with? And we use that through Mentor, we use that through some other things, but we want to constantly look at how we can make that more robust. Since I don't know how to do this very well, I'll go back here. In regards to the behavior data and the things we're working on as a school, we're starting to focus a lot more on major and minor behavior referrals and then what we can do with them. So, our majors fighting, some severe insubordination, things like that, versus the minor ones, cell phone violations, pieces like that. We want to continue to use PBIS and our clear and consistent expectations to address those minor behaviors. And something that Mr. Kendall and I have been talking more robustly about lately are our Tier 2 and Tier 3 students, who are our students that really are struggling to follow our expectations or our rules, and what are we doing other than just punitively suspending them or putting them in school or those sort of things. What are we doing to better support and build the skills that they're missing, that they are reoccurring infractions of our school rules. We're continuing to use our reward system in terms of teachers are given different cards that directly relate to our PBIS things where they're rewarding kids. Kids put their name on the card, they're drawn for different prizes, things like that. And then obviously, like I talked about before, making sure that all students have a point of contact, someone that they can go to, someone that they feel good about. So, like I said, we just started the ICU process. Freedom Friday is actually going really well. We're continuing to work to tweak on the best way that we do it. And what I have been really impressed with is when I sit and I look, we might miss some kids because they skip out or whatever reason. When I look out, I see 90 plus kids sitting with teachers working on stuff, and that would not be happening without that 40 minutes. And that's what I really, really have valued about it each time. We are refining it each time to making it better, making it more impactful. But we're at least getting some seat time with kids that we would not normally get, directly working on either passing the class or they're missing assignments with those particular teachers. And then finally, like I had alluded to earlier, is really working with our special education department on what types of strategies or what things we can be doing as a school holistically to really set our resource students up for success with that four-year graduation. So that's the basis of what I have. Questions, thoughts?
I think the opportunity for teachers working with students, the individual, their study skills, they're getting their homework, that kind of thing done can be exceedingly valuable when you look at parenting skills, what home life is like. If they can get started in school on these things and learn, get the advice, the
Yes.
personal, hands-on, get them going, then maybe they can transfer those skills to home where the supervision is not, where parents just don't know how to take care of kids' health and stuff. So I appreciate that time and effort.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes.
Do you have a superintendent update?
No, I just want to say thank you to the principals for their work and what they do on a daily basis to make our strategic plan a living, breathing document, not just something that's sitting on a shelf somewhere that, and that's the reason why we give you updates, is so you guys know that we take that strategic plan to heart, and every ounce of work they put into it on a daily basis is hopefully what makes the difference in the end. Thank you for being here tonight to present.
Since there's no other people here to speak, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I believe the Board of Education is.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.